This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me today is Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
On this week's show, we're covering six new releases, kicking off with Last Sentinel. Then we have the anthology movie Nightmare Radio, Wire Room, one of the last Bruce Willis films, The Integrity of Joseph Chambers, The Locksmith, and The Quantum Devil. Our short shot this week is Ringworms, and then our DTV throwback is Unlucky Stars. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is Last Sentinel. In a future where most of the planet is submerged and the remaining countries fight over territory, a small squad of soldiers manning a platform in the middle of the ocean await their relief ship. However, when it does eventually arrive, there is no one on board. This is one of those sort of yin-yang films in a way, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot to like here, especially the production values. The concept of the film is all really strong. It's kind of like the Lars von Trier version of Waterworld. It's like the really stripped down version of that sort of scenario, or you know, you can almost sort of see it in the same reality as The Road almost. You know, it's that sort of thing. If The Road meets Waterworld, you kind of come up with this a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I was sort of equating it with stuff like Larry Fessenden's The Last Winter, you know, where it's like this, it's a small scale story, but there's kind of like big sort of world building sort of implications sort of happening on the, you know, on the periphery, as it were. You don't really, it's very much it's kind of the sort of isolated, almost cabin in the woods kind of setup, you know, isn't it? It's just
it is a single location film,
well,
more or less. I think my only real issue is the length. It's way too long. There's not enough characters to pad out the material, and they don't have enough to do. Which you know, it hurts the film, unfortunately. But I think there is a lot to like here, Rich. What did you make of this?
No, I do as well. I do agree with you. I think it's about 100 minutes long, which I think is too much for, as you say, a film working within these particular limitations. I think it needed to be a bit tighter. You know, that's something like we had Black Site, the Sophia Banks, I think, film, which was pretty much a tight 90-minute thriller. And also the other film that I think was also around 90 minutes, or I might be wrong, reminded me of Interceptor, which was also a film set on a platform. I don't know if you caught it, but the fort itself is modelled on, you know, the inspiration for the setting came from what's called the Maunsell Forts, which is off the coast of Kent. They were used as an exterior shot in Molly. Do you remember that?
Yes, that's right. They were.
Yeah. So that's kind of where the inspiration sort of came from, and then they actually ended up making it in Estonia, and I presume that's like a visual effect creation. I presume the whole setting is a visual effect, and it's all just sort of the interior, which is all very, say, cube, alien, whatever you want to equate it to. The what's it, Sea Fever was another one we watched that came up. They've all treated the same kind of setting with different threats and stuff, but this is very much there's no Proteus that was set on a platform. I think it was an oil rig, but this is it's not a creature feature or anything like that. It's very much to do with tensions within the group, and there's a little bit of setup at the start of, you know, it's set in a future where, you know, the world is Waterworld basically, and there are factions. There's basically two factions, and that is kind of there in the background, but they don't really make much of it, and it sort of comes to the surface towards the end. It's it's as much a mystery as anything else, because there is a sort of tension and sort of who did that, who done, you know, they don't, it's not they don't get picked off particularly, but you know, there is a certain level of attrition, but it is a very small group, so there's only so much you can do. But I thought, you know, we're joining them at a point where, you know, it's already gone to hell, you know. It's like, but things are going to get worse from this point. You know, they're already in a bad situation, and they're already sort of on the brink. And you know, there's fatigue and mental issues coming to voice and stuff, and that's kind of what the film is focusing on. And I think it does a good job. I think Thomas Kretschmann's really good. Kate Bosworth is very good in her role, and the whole cast really. I think there's only like 4, maybe 5 people as main characters in the story.
We've got four main characters, and then 2 others, 2 or 3 others are appearing like one scene later on, and that's about it. Yeah.
And the sort of crux is that they're at sea protecting something,
secret,
so that's kind of the thing in the background. That's the slow burn element. It's all kind of spending time with the characters, mistrust and wanting to move on, and you know, sabotage and stuff like that. There's a lot that's really engaging. I think the film looks great. The whole, as you previously mentioned, production values for what is probably quite a modestly budgeted film are really good. You know, all the stuff, you know, it's set at sea, you know, but it doesn't feel like it's shot in a tank or using some, you know, dodgy CGI. It feels pretty convincing, I would say. So I don't know what the setup was with how they made it, but it all comes off really well. And yeah, I think it was a lot better than I actually thought it was going to be. I was very pleasantly surprised. I was looking forward to it, but it exceeded my expectations. Just could have been a bit shorter. Yeah,
I agree with that. How are you going to score it then?
I am going to give this one an 8. I think I really liked it.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 7. Steve, who can't join us today because he's not feeling very well, he didn't get on with this, unfortunately. He scored it a 5.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a 5, a 7, and an 8 for Last Sentinel. Go check it out. Our next film is Nightmare Radio: The Night Stalker. A late-night radio host challenges her listeners to call in with their own personal horror stories while trying to ignore the misogynist, creepy incel who's stalking her. This is actually the second anthology to be called Nightmare Radio. There was a previous one. Just lost the title now. Just spent 2 seconds.
Because this is Nightmare Radio: The Night Stalker, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. The other one was A Night of Horror, Nightmare Radio. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure I've seen the previous one. You know, but this one is a bit more memorable. The thing is with, as you're very well aware, Rich, with anthology movies, they can be sort of very hit and miss. You know, there's usually like 1 or 2 good stories and then a bit of filler. This seems to be much more consistent than some of the other anthologies we've looked at. The wraparound story is a lot better. You know, it's not just there as a sort of throwaway to try and glue stuff together. It has a bit of purpose, and the actual sort of stories in between. I think there was only one which I didn't really get on with too well, but overall, I thought the standard was very good for this.
Yeah, I'm a bit in 2 minds about these particular kinds of anthologies, which are the what I consider like a compilation album, where they buy the rights to 5 or 6 short films, and then they commission a wraparound story to be shot to just sort of pepper it in. So basically a 30-minute story or 20-minute story, and then they cut away to the short films, whatever. And when you're doing that, it can seem a bit inconsistent, especially when like aspect ratios changed and stuff like that occasionally.
Cool.
Which you could do that in a film like VHS, for example. You know, a film that is conceived, you know, from as an anthology as a whole. You know, even if they work with other directors, you know, they might say, we're making this thing, you go off and do that story, but you've all got a mission statement. You're all working together as part of one project. Whereas all these other films have been made with, you know, their own beginning, middle, and end. You know, their own top and tail, their own credits, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So they sort of chop them off.
Yeah, and this is where this does sort of fall down. I mean, I do like all the individual stories, but even given the wraparound, they do find it difficult to sort of link the wraparound, you know, the interjoining bit to the shorts. You know,
it's all very tenuous, isn't it? Yeah,
it is a bit. You know, the idea is, you know, we've got this radio hostess who's saying, tell me something which happened to you specifically, which was creepy. Then we get these stories, and then afterwards she's going, no, I said to you, that was obviously about somebody else, sort of thing. You know,
yeah,
because they died or whatever, you know. But but the actual individual stories I thought were very good for this one.
Yeah, it's kind of the setup is a bit like Adrian Barbeau in The Fog sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought all that stuff, all you know, actually the production values on the whole thing, but the production values on the wraparound, which seem to have a little bit more money to play with than some of the shorts. It's all very quite, you know, nicely, you know, limited locations and stuff, but we're in the studio, we go in the corridor and in the bathroom. There's a few different areas, and it's all very nicely shot. The actress is really good. I wasn't so hot on the, you know, the antagonist of that particular story. But I liked her, and I thought that worked quite nicely. The shorts themselves, we've got. Hang on, let me just double check what we've got. There are. Hang on, see if I can find it. There are 1, 2, 3, 6. So there's 6 shorts in the film, and I'll be honest, there was only one that I was really keen on, although there was another one that I thought was pretty good, and that was the so Insane, which was the one where they basically, it's a very conventional kind of story, but takes a guy scouting for a location to an old mental hospital.
Oh yeah.
And spooky stuff happens. Basically, it's like a 15-20 minute story. Very very nicely shot. Very, you know, formula kind of horror setup, but I thought it worked quite nicely. And I thought the one at the end, Chateau Savignon, had some quite interesting stuff going on. Also looked really good.
Yeah.
But the other ones there was Playtime by Ryan Thompson, Foxes by Lorcan Finnegan was pretty interesting, especially the kind of the location of the story, because it's set in a suburbia that's completely one, it seems abandoned. It's like devoid of any character, and I don't know if they did any visual effects or just found a really, you know, interesting location, but every house looks the same. You know, it's one of those developments where it's got no personality at all. It's almost like Stepford Wives-y kind of, you know, blandness, and that's kind of the, you know, this she's a photographer, and she's working from home, and you know, she's completely isolated, and her husband's going off to work and stuff. But you see, you know, the husband, you know, driving away, you know, driving back or whatever. You never see a single soul of anyone else. It's a very isolated setting, despite the fact that it's, you know, there's a large population. And I think we've all seen sort of locations like that. So it's quite a relatable setting. Almost also a bit wild as well, because the grass is overgrown in areas and stuff. There's some interesting stuff in that story as well, but that doesn't, it comes back to the sort of original point of, that doesn't really fit with what she was saying, the host was saying as a story.
I think she comes up with her idea after that particular story.
Oh, okay.
I think that's when she, but there you go. Yeah, which is a bit of a get out.
Stretch it out a bit, because nobody really, I mean, I know you've already touched on this, nobody really actually does what she sets out, says, tell me a story that's happened to you or whatever. They don't actually ever get there. So none of the stories even relate to so it's a bit maybe, but like you say, I think this is the second Nightmare Radio. Maybe the first one did this. I don't know if it did the same idea, but maybe that will be developed a bit more. But I don't know. The makers of this, and they've done a few others like the Red Book Ritual, which we covered.
We did, yeah.
I'm glad. I started out the review saying I'm sort of in a bit two minds, because I'm really glad they make these, because they do give these short films a showcase, which they otherwise might not get. Although that said, two of the films that are in this are selections on Alter, so you can watch them. You can find them on YouTube. I can't remember which ones they are, but I know that I found 3 of these films are available on YouTube, so you don't have to actually go and rent the film to see all of them. Although some of these films do have films with a certain level of exclusivity, like Chateau Sauvignon, for example, I think is only available to watch in this film. And it's a good one, so it's worth it is worth seeing. Yeah. So that was David M. Nightmare. I think that's a little play on words. And Liz Drives is another one, which is quite interesting. Got a little payoff, little twist in the tail kind of story of the it's almost like an urban legend type of.
It is. It sings quite hard, that one, isn't it? It's one of those sort of like, I won't say any more about it, but yeah.
I'd say that. I mean, if you like me, you like short films, and if you like horror anthologies and stuff like that, this is definitely worth checking out. It's not got some of the best, but it's definitely it's got variety. There's a lot of interesting things. It's like we're seeing the work of a handful of directors who's, you might go, oh, actually, I'd really like to check out more of what they've done. In particular, I'm really interested in Adam O'Brien's work. But I would say it's not the best, but it's not the worst, and it's pretty decent.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. Steve also watched this. As I said, he's not here tonight. He actually gave this a 7. He agreed with me. It's quite a consistent anthology. So how are you going to score this one, Rich?
I'm just going to slightly go down and say a 6 on this one.
All right, I'm joining Steve on a 7. So it's 2 7s and a 6 for Nightmare Radio. Go check it out. Our next review is Wire Room. Justin Rosa is a newly recruited FBI agent assigned to wire room duty, along with a retiring cop and a young technical expert. When the subject of their wiretapping mission is attacked by dirty cops, Justin breaks the #1 rule and interacts with their subject to try and keep him alive. Interesting concept for this one, Rich. I have to admit, I liked the idea that they were playing with here. I just think they went about it all wrong.
It's the kind of situation that we've seen before, but in the reverse. It's almost like, because of the Bruce Willis connection, but imagine Die Hard, but you were spending all your time with who's the guy on the outside who he's talking to? I can't remember. The cop.
The cop, yeah.
Yeah. So imagine you were spending most of your time with him, talking to him on the radio and cutting back the other way. I think that's probably a reasonable sort of way of looking at it, because we end up in this situation where Kevin Dillon is the hero, but he's basically desk jockey. He's kind of sitting at a computer, and there's this other guy, not played by Bruce Willis. It's actually Oliver Trevana, who is like he's like a Grand Theft Auto character, basically. He's a bad guy, but he's kind of like the anti-hero, because he's a bad guy who bad guys are coming after. So it's that kind of
the enemy of my enemy.
We're supposed to root for him and stuff. And to be fair, he does. He runs with the role, and I have to give him credit for that. Oliver Trevana, who was also in Plane recently with Gerard Butler. Right. I spotted him in that, and he's actually English, but I think in this he's playing Irish.
Very Irish.
Yeah, but I don't think he does too bad a job. I mean, it's fine. It's just I always think it's a bit of a shame when sort of like a main character like this is played by somebody who's not as well known, so doesn't get their name or face or whatever on the cover, and it's it's one of those bait and switch kind of jobs. But we do get quite a lot of Kevin Dillon, and we do get a little about what we would expect to get of Bruce Willis. So I don't feel undersold too much on that. Although I did see on, I think it's the UK video release box. I'm sure it said something like Bruce Willis is back to his best or something. And I was like, I'm just checking it now. But Bruce Willis is back to his best, action packed. And I was like, back to his best in what sense? That's the funny thing. It's a completely unattributed quote.
Oh, right. Oh my God.
So he's not back to his best. Reportedly, this was the last film he shot before his retirement.
Yeah,
which is quite hard to believe.
There's still others
considering how many there are coming out.
Yeah, there's still others coming out, but this is apparently the last one that actually made. So
now, did we watch Hot Seat, the one which had Kevin Dillon and Mel Gibson?
Mel Gibson, yeah.
I think these two are pretty interchangeable.
Yeah,
but with the exception
of, I said again, he's stuck in a computer room again.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. It's just because it's almost like I was like, Hot Seat, did that have Bruce? No, it's actually Mel Gibson really liked him in that, and the sort of side stuff that they were doing with Mel Gibson were actually very engaging. Whereas with this, it's Bruce Willis sort of pops up at the beginning, and I think he comes back a little bit later, and that's as much as you get. But so I think if I was comparing the two, I would say out of the two Kevin Dillon sits in a room movies, I would go and watch Hot Seat because of Mel Gibson. But I think it's just funny, these Bruce exploitation movie, it's not Bruce exploitation in Bruce Lee, but Bruce Willis exploitation movies. Some of them are just so similar in their structure and conventions and the way they're shot, and even the same director. I mean, Matt Eskandari, who made this is his fourth with Bruce Willis,
right? And
I think that's not to say I think they're all bad, because I think the first one he did was Trauma Center, which I actually really liked.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff in that. Yeah.
I think it was good. I think it looked really good and everything. This is on the lower end. There's no polished, sort of strong cinematography and stuff to sort of sell the limited circumstances and whatever. It's got that kind of rush job sort of TV movie-ish feel to it. I think it's fine, and I think if you're a completist, or you enjoy, you like Kevin Dillon, or you're a Bruce Willis completist or something, give it a look. I don't think it's not a bad way to spend approximately 90 minutes. Actually, I think it's a bit overlong, this one. I think it's about an hour and 40. Again, they're sort of stretching it too much. I think you need to shave off about 20 minutes there, but they are what they are. I think we're aware of the Bruce Willis situation now, so we're going into these with a bit of a different mindset to what we were about,
a year ago,
a year or 12, 18 months ago. So we kind of know what we're getting into, and also from that sense, but also just the broader implications of what we think one of these kind of DTV action movies is going to be like, what the expectations are. So if your expectations are set accordingly, you'll get on fine with it. I got on fine with it. I just think there's better ones out there, definitely.
It's interesting that now they've stopped paying for Bruce Willis's retirement fund. Perhaps the production values may improve with some of these sort of going forward. Like I said, I enjoyed the concept of this, of these dirty cops sort of raiding this guy, only to find out that he's being totally wiretapped by the FBI, sort of thing. Great scenario, but I think they told it from the wrong end. I think there needed to be more interaction with those bad guys for to really sort of embellish the film.
I'll be honest, I don't really remember much about the bad guys and their motivations or anything.
Exactly. A couple of things. We get loads and loads of establishing shots of where the wire room is on this sort of weird industrial estate. We get no establishing shots for where our gun runner is being attacked from at all until like about until the film's almost over. Then we get like an establishing shot of his compound, but it's clearly, I don't know, sort of somebody's front yard, sort of with a gate. Part of their SUV.
It does just look like someone's house. Yeah,
it does. But we get no real sort of sense of the scale of where he lives. It could be like a 3-bedroom semi-detached place for all we know. But it's only really late they do sort of throw in this a quick establishing shot to say, oh yeah, no, this is where he lives, this compound sort of thing, which is a weird. There's a funny bit as well where we get the showdown at the end where the bad guys turn up and they're going, "Ha, you can't shoot me through this bulletproof glass." And there's a wooden door between the 2 sheets of wooden glass. Like, well, shoot the door. Just shoot him through the door. That solved it. It was very bizarre. But yeah, it's passable. As I said, we've seen worse. That's for sure. The what were those ones with?
Well, I mean, Oliver Trevana was in Out of Death, which was definitely worse than this.
Yeah.
He had a small role in that one. That was definitely one that felt like it was showing someone's garden.
The 2 Fortress ones.
Yeah, the Fortress movies.
especially the Fortress 2. Anyway, that was fucking dreadful. This was a bit more passable. It's not up there with Trauma Center. That was, that was back when Bruce was actually still trying to act, rather than just say his lines.
Another one is we got Texas Battle, who was I think he was. I mean, he was in Trauma Center. He's back in this one as one of the bad guys again. I think.
Right.
I think he was a bad guy. I can't remember, but but he's definitely back in the cast. They always sort of bring. I'm half expecting to see Simon Phillips turn up because he was in one of them as well.
Yeah, he was. He was in the first Fortress one. Yeah.
As an aside, Simon Phillips is up against Arnold Schwarzenegger in the new series Fubar. I don't know how long his scene is, but I saw him in the trailer. So nice, good on Simon Phillips for sort of climbing the action hero sort of ladder with co-stars and stuff. So anyway, but I think Out of Death was one that was particularly not good. And I think this is better. I think, say, Kevin Dillon, okay, he's done a couple of these now. Not sure where I rank him in the sort of the DTV action leads of the moment.
It must be difficult to have to be constantly reacting to a blank TV screen. That must be hard. So
yeah, they need to give him a role where he's actually doing something rather than just being Johnny Drama stuck behind a desk, kind of thing. So
yeah. On that note, how are you going to score it, Rich?
Ooh, I think I can't really go more than 5. I think it's very middling.
It is very middling. Yeah, I mean, I knew from the opening shot, the opening in media res nonsense that we get, which is all this sort of blurred. They put this sort of blurred effect on people running with really bad audio and stuff. And I looked and I thought, oh Jesus, I'm gonna hate this. So maybe they threw that in just to lower my expectations and then allow me to build up a little bit. So yeah, I'm joining you on a 5 for this. So it's 2 5s for Wire Room. If you're a Bruce completionist, go check it out. Our next film is The Integrity of Joseph Chambers. An insurance salesman decides he needs to prove his manliness to his wife and himself by going hunting alone in the woods. However, a series of bad judgments leads to catastrophe. We've got Clayne Crawford. Crawford?
Yes.
Crawford.
Yeah. From the Lethal Weapon series, played Martin Riggs for a few seasons, I think, before they
2 seasons
parted ways.
Before his antics on set got the better of him. He was also in a very good low-budget film that I rate quite well, called Convergence. He was in that with a guy from Devil's Candy. I can't remember the name of the actor now, but anyway, that's a really good film worth checking out. So yeah, and we've got Jordana Brewster in this as well, playing his wife at the beginning of the film as well. So it's good to see her in a more grown-up role after 10 Fast Furious movies and The Faculty, which is the only two things I know her from. But really do rate her. So we got this guy. He's an insurance salesman, quite a successful insurance salesman by all accounts. But from the looks of it, he's been watching too many Andrew Tate videos in his downtime. And he decides that he needs to prove himself, god damn it, and ill-advisedly takes this trip into the woods. What would you say the first thing he does wrong, Rich?
The first thing he does wrong,
other than go out on his own. So
he's not prepared.
Well, he's not prepared. So he's been told that he needs to wear orange, by the looks of it. He hasn't been told why he needs to wear orange, because he wears it under his other coat. So he's got like I don't know, sort of body warmer thing, sleeveless orange body warmer, but he wears it under his jacket so it can't be seen. The whole point is, if you're out hunting, you wear orange because you can be seen by other hunters. You can't be seen by the deer, because they can't see orange and yellow. So, you make yourself bright to other people, make them aware, you're there, but you're not hurting your advantage, sort of trying to sneak up on a deer or something.
See, I would have never got that. never. I don't know enough about the subject, but no, that is quite interesting. It's what I think you can tell from the opening lingering shot of the film that it's a slow burn. It's very much on the art film side of things. It's one of those one man, practically one man show kind of films. This is a film about the character of Joseph Chambers and Clayne Crawford's sort of opportunity to sort of shut. I guess he's trying, have it almost like a play kind of. It's like one of those one man show sort of play kind of films where he gets to showcase his range. I guess that's what he's kind of a different side of his acting to maybe what people have seen him in the more say like Lethal Weapon, the more popular stuff that he's done, mainstream. This is an art film. The second film he's done with the director Robert McCoyan, who did the Killing of Two Lovers together, which I presume is sort of similar sort of kettle of fish. It's shot in more like a 4:3 ratio, so it's like black bars on the side of your screen. And I think the previous film that they did together was also that way. Clayne Crawford's actually a producer, so he's more invested than I think he's like one of the only producers. So it's not like they've just added his name to the credits. It's like he's an active producer in the film. It's kind of the project that him and the director have clearly writer director have been sort of getting off the ground together. How much did you get to see of it?
I did sort of skip through bits and pieces, but I think I sort of picked up the more integral moments, basically. So
the film has, it's a slow burn. I think I was watching it kind of half passively, I wasn't fully, if I was just watching the film and not sort of looking at my phone or using the computer or whatever, I think I would have been bored to tears for quite a bit of it. I've just been very frustrated with the pace. For me, it would seem like there's a really good 20-minute short film in here, but not necessarily an hour and a half that I want to spend with this character, because he's not an appealing, guy. And the film itself, it's on the surface, it's very serious, but it's got like blackly comic sort of diversions and touches and stuff. So, Joseph Chambers goes into the woods, and immediately, he's not really taking it seriously. He's not really trying his best. He's kind of, he sets up to, on a lookout, or whatever, and like immediately falls asleep. And then he's like, we're just spending time sort of following him around as he sort of sings to himself or whatever. And you get these kind of auditory, not hallucinations, but representations of his imagination, where he's like imagining he's like playing baseball and stuff. So you hear crowds and stuff. There's these little touches like that. But there's a turn of events which livens things up, and it does become quite interesting and quite intriguing about how he's going to deal with that particular situation from that point. Still very slow, still lots of, limited dialogue, drawn out scenes, kind of more of a, it is kind of a, what would be like if this was in real life, it's
if
not
it happened to you sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not it's not a thriller.
Yeah.
Could be a thriller. You could say there's a little bit of a thriller element to it, but it's more a sort of a drama with sort of dry black comedy and stuff peppered throughout it. I didn't dislike it, apart from the fact that I think for my tastes it would have worked better as say a short film. But it's certainly a good performance from Plain Crawford, who's I haven't actually watched the Lethal Weapon series or anything, so I don't know his work very well. But he was fine. There's Jordan, like you say, Jordana Brewster's in there a little bit. There's somebody else who turns up later in the film, which was as long as you don't read the credits or whatever, that's quite a nice little surprise later on when you see somebody else you might recognize. So yeah, I think it's okay, but don't go in expecting, a fast-paced thriller. It's very much a slow burn. Yeah,
I mean, there are sort of numerous films out there which are quite compelling, even though they're sort of just very slow, long takes. I mean, one of my favorite films from a couple of years ago is Silence and Darkness, where you're following around two sisters, one is blind and one is deaf, and you just literally the camera's like in the distance almost. You just sort of watching them interact and stuff for long periods without anything really happening, but it's still very compelling while you're watching it. And there are various scenes here. There's one in particular, there's a tracking shot which reveals something very important in the middle of the film, but it takes ages for something's coming, because you've seen the look on his face.
I know the bit you mean.
I mean. It does take forever, and then at the end of the film, it's kind of like a playful wink by the filmmakers, the way they did that. I mean, it's a brilliant bit of acting at the end of the film, but if you're expecting any kind of payoff to anything that happens in the film, you may be waiting a long time, basically. But it's well acted for what it is. It's not going to suit everyone. It's not really a thriller as such.
No.
It is very much a sort of survivalist drama kind of scenario. But yeah, if you go in it with the right mind frame, you'll probably get a lot out of it. Otherwise, you're gonna. If you read some of the comments on IMDb, there's a lot of people very frustrated with this film. But there you go. On that note,
I can see that. I mean, the cover is quite dramatic. The cover is quite action movie-ish. It looks quite exciting from the cover, so you can certainly see why that's happened. The other thing I'll mention is this is actually had a physical release. So it is like most of the films we generally end up talking about. It's digitally available, but they've released this one not on DVD, but they have released it on Blu-ray. I'm not sure if there's any extra features and stuff from the director. I haven't been able to find that out, but it is if you're interested, there is a Blu-ray out there. Maybe it's because of the director, the kind of he's probably got art directors tend to have sort of a following and stuff, and then maybe that's the sort of reason behind that. This is we're perhaps the wrong audience, but I'm glad we gave it a shot, and I did enjoy certain elements of it, definitely.
Indeed. On that note, how are you going to score it?
I'm going to give it a 6.
Yeah, I think that's fair. 2 6s for The Integrity of Joseph Chambers. Go check it out. Our next review is The Locksmith. Miller Graham is an expert locksmith and safecracker. One night on a job, he is betrayed by a dirty cop, which results in the death of his best friend and a 10-year prison sentence. When he finally gets out, Miller just wants to make amends with his ex and daughter, but the same dirty cop, now a decorated detective, is back in his life. This is one of my films of the year, Rich.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely. It's nothing really original. I mean, we've
No, definitely not
at all. But it is done with a lot of style. It is, the opening credit sequence is done to sort of give it that sort of a bit of a sort of
70s
retro
flavor,
70s flavor. It feels like something that could have been written by oh bloody hell, who's the guy who did Get Shorty?
Oh God.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah, outside. It has a bit of feel of that, going through it. It's very well written. Very
Elmore Leonard.
Elmore Leonard, thank you.
Yeah, Elmore Leonard.
It's got that sort of flavour to it. It's got well-rounded characters. We've got a hero who is, he's highly skilled but not very bright. Let's face it. Wears his heart on his sleeve. Gets himself way over his head in various ventures in this film, but it is just so well done. It moves at a good pace, doesn't outstay its welcome. I think the ending it overplays it a little bit. There's just too many reveals, one after the other, sort of thing. But other than that, I thought this was very solid indeed. How about yourself?
Yeah, I did like it a lot. I think we've got a really good cast here of Kate Bosworth in her second film released this week.
Film of the week. Yep.
And Ryan Philippe as the locksmith himself. We've got solid support from Ving Rhames, Tom Wright, who a lot of people might recognise from like Marked for Death and martial law TV series. We've got Noel G, who's like a character actor who's pops up all over the place. He's one of the sort of second in commands at in the corrupt sort of cops division. The set say that it is very much a guy gets out of prison but can't stay straight kind of story. It's that story. We've seen it a lot of times.
Sucked back in, all that.
He gets sucked back in. There's, as you say, there's some interesting dimensions to how that happens and how that pans out. That's what the game plan is, and that it's very manipulative kind of situation. There's there's a relationship with his ex, who's happens to be on the police force with the antagonists of the story. So she's kind of embedded there with his daughter. So it's a small town. Everyone knows each other. He's like, he's like literally one step removed from the situation and stuff. And so everything's very tight. Everyone's very close together, and the threats are very real. There's some really nice action moments. It's not an action film, so it's very much a thriller, but there's like some a bit towards particularly there was a bit towards the end involving Ving Rhames, which I thought was very nicely played. It's all gunfight kind of stuff. The relation, the character having the relationship with his daughter, I thought was really nice and quite interesting, because it's not like she's actually really open to it. She's not like, oh, you're not my dad, you haven't been around or anything. She's just like, oh, hi, and so she's like really keen to sort of develop that relationship and stuff. And he is, he does seem to be trying his best and genuinely does want to be a good father and make reconciliate with the part with his ex and stuff. So he's a very easy character. Miller Graham's a very easy character to sort of like and get on board with, even when he's sort of making some bad decisions. So I did really. I think this bit like the other Kate Bosworth films, film I should say. It surprised me because it was a step higher in terms of sort of quality than I was expecting. Bosworth and Philippe both make some pretty decent films. There's not many that I've sort of been disappointed by, I should say.
Mm.
There's, you know, some films like you get like Ryan Philippe will turn up as like a supporting character, and it doesn't feel like the film is, you know,
Where is that one
fully
about
using himself.
the Alps? Was it the
Yeah,
Alps?
that's the one I'm
funny
particularly thinking of,
yeah,
where he doesn't quite fit or whatever, but him in a, you know, he is a leading actor, I think, and he you know, he's better when he's in those kind of leading roles, or if it's a strong supporting role that suits him really well, like One Shot, for example. I thought he was good.
He was good in that, yeah.
He was good in that. So he is one of those guys who's been around for a long time. You know, he's teen heartthrob, Cruel Intentions, and all that sort of thing. But he's really stayed the course, and I think he's, you know, he's still, you know, I think he's more improved himself, but he's kind of still kind of on the periphery. He's kind of one of those guys. You still go, oh, Ryan Philippe, kind of thing. But then you get quite surprised every time you see him. I've liked most stuff that I've ever seen him in, and I think as he gets older, I think that'll only improve, because I think he will stay the course and be one of the, you know, one of those guys who will maintain quite a high standard as his career, you know, continues over the next 10, 20 years.
But some other nice bits in this. We got a good sort of villain with Jeffrey Nordling playing Detective Zwick. For one, he's an absolute ass when we see him, and not quite as in control as he likes to think he is. What's going on? We also get a sympathetic parole officer for probably the first time ever. You know, someone who's actually stern but fair.
Yes.
You know, she gets two scenes. First one, she's like, you know, chewing him out, and the next one, she's like, "Oh, well done," you know, all this sort of stuff, which I thought was really, really cool. Yeah,
because usually in this sort of scenario, it's like they go to the parole officer, and the parole officer's like, "I know what you've done, right?
Yeah.
Now you need to go and see this guy."
Yeah, exactly.
And give me a cut, kind of thing. Yeah,
like in Heat or something.
Yeah.
The other bit as well, which was really good, was that piano recital at the end. Just that little moment when she plays Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I thought that was, you know, quite touching, really. It was, you know, had quite a bit of heart, and sort of showed how much, you know, she actually cared, you know, how much she'd been affected by what had actually happened. So yeah, no, it's this is really, really solid. As you know, it's nothing original, but it's just done really, really well, and thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, this don't be surprised if come December, you know, I'm talking about this in my top 10. And on that note, I'm going to score it an 8 out of 10. How about yourself?
I'm going to give it an 8 as well.
Yeah, 2 solid 8s for the Locksmith. Go check it out. Our final main review is The Quantum Devil. An international team of scientists whose research is linked to the supernatural are summoned to a remote location in Eastern Europe in an effort to breach the quantum barrier and travel to another dimension. This is from the same director or writer-director as a film we covered last year, which Girl Next, which you and Steve did not get on with at all.
Not
so
really.
I'm not surprised. This is sort of like, you know, this is like the last film that you were looking to cover. I didn't get round to. You know, it was on the back burner and slipped through. It's a mess. It is a mess. It's not as grotesque as Girl Next.
It does sound interesting. I like the concept.
Yeah,
I like
but it's just
the sort of setup.
It's sort of channeling sort of H.P. Lovecraft meets David Lynch. It is very, very strange. Some of it's in English, some of it's in, I don't know, it's Estonian or something. And it's about this you know, philanthropist who's in a wheelchair. He's got very sort of strange people working for him, and he brings this group of people together. One's like an empath, one's like a biochemist, one's a physicist, you know, quantum physicist, all this sort of stuff. And he's hoping that together they're going to help him sort of breach this barrier and open this portal into another realm. But on top of that, each of these people has a dark secret that he knows about. So, he reveals that, yes, I know all the things. For example, the chemist guy, he helped this drug gang come up with a new version of ecstasy or something that would ended up killing about 200 people in this nightclub. Our main so-called hero accidentally killed his girlfriend or his fiance during a bit of a rough sex one night. And the empath, for example, she had a twin sister who died in childbirth. So so they were both born at the same time, but only one of them survived. And she's sort of haunted by her sister's alter ego and all this sort of stuff going on. It's very strange, as you'd expect from this director. Very trippy at times, and it does have an interesting denouement. It goes down quite a sort of dark alleyway, shall we say? But it is a bit just a bit too weird for its own good.
How long is it?
I'm not sure actually. Hang on, just.
I was just wondering, is it a story that's kind of quite quite contained, in terms of, does it get where it needs to go reasonably, or is it like really drawn out?
It is a bit overly drawn out. Yeah, it is. Well, it's only an hour and 30. But even so, especially at the beginning, where our main guy turns up at this mansion, and he takes a taxi from the train station to this place. The taxi driver's not very happy about taking him there. More or less kicks him out the door as soon as they get there and drives off. And then he has to go into this place, and it's all really, really drawn out. And it takes a long time before. There's no subtitles when other people are speaking other languages to begin with as well. So he's just yelling at these people, going, "I'm an American scientist. You told me to come here." All this sort of stuff, but it takes a while. So I don't know. Maybe it could have been. It could have benefited from a rewrite, but other than that, it does sort of channel into that Lovecraftian kind of thing. With sort of the old gods and all that. I did enjoy it eventually, but it did take a while to sort of really get into its stride. And on
that note, what are you going to score it?
It's going to be a 6. Yeah, I think I preferred Girl Next over this, which is interesting. But I do find him. Larry Wade Carroll is the director and one of the writers. He does produce some very strange stuff, it has to be said. Cool. All right, on to our short.
Got a case of the old ringworms.
In 5. Our short shot this week is Ringworms. A young couple rent a remote cabin for a romantic weekend, only to fall foul of a bizarre cult trying to resurrect their leader. It's not often I get to recommend a short, but I caught this twice last year at a couple of film festivals. First one was Mayhem. No, first one was Grimfest over in Manchester, and then Mayhem. Unfortunately, when it was shown in Mayhem, something went wrong with the audio, and halfway through the film, the audio was out of sync with what we're actually seeing on the screen, which was a real shame. Luckily, obviously, the version on YouTube is fine. But I think I've watched this about 5 times now. I really do enjoy it. I showed it to my wife the other night. She enjoyed it as well. But it is
the coincidence of this was when you recommended it to me. I'd literally just watched and posted on our Short Shots feed, which was the film the director made previously. So I just thought that was a weird coincidence that I'd just posted one of his films, and then you tell me about one of the others. So did you watch Feed, by the way?
I haven't yet. No, I will be.
It's worth a look.
Yeah.
But Ringworms. So what are your impressions?
I just really love this. I love the editing for one thing. Yeah, it's got a nice look to it all the way through. It's a classic sort of cabin in the woods story. You know, you've got these two people. You know, there's a bit of drama going on because the guy is about to propose to the girl. She doesn't know about it, but you know the guy's sister does, so she's calling her. So what the hell's going on? And all this. Then he drops the ring down the garbage chute. You know, and you kind of know what's going to happen a little bit. But also, while all this is going on, unbeknownst to them, there's this cult who are trying to resurrect their leader, and it's sort of this really bizarre sort of, I don't know, not exactly satanic, but sort of demonic thing going on, and it's got a sort of sense of sort of folk horror to it as well, which is really interesting.
They're sort of feeding off her sort of uncertainty and angst and stuff. Yeah, about the situation that she's in with her partner. Yeah,
it's absolutely brilliant. And then you know the transformation and everything that happens in the fight. I just think it's a really well done, really well encapsulated story. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I just thought the bit where, you know, like when you see the cult down in their sort of cult area watching sort of what is basically like the Ring videotape almost, like they've got this kind of videotape.
Oh yeah, that was weird, isn't it?
Yeah. Which also brought to mind a little bit, because I just watched it recently, Get Out, which has a videotape kind of bit in it as well. Oh, yeah. But the area that they're in just seemed really, really small. It's like it felt like they were in a cupboard. They were like this like cult group, and they were like
in basement or somewhere.
In this like real corner, like really tiny sort of area. It would have felt a bit better if there was a bit more space to sort of show them all in a broader sort of environment. But yeah, it's a very weird sort of what are they doing kind of thing. I would be interested to see, you know, an elaboration of who they are and whatever. It's all very much left vague intentionally.
It's a nice sort of production element as well with the with the portrait. It's a nice sort of production element with the portrait of the cult leader. Sort of showing him in his prime, and then you sort of see him in the wheelchair, and then as he's sort of regenerating, you know, they sort of cut in front of him each time, and he's sort of a bit more sort of with it and more menacing. It's really really well done.
Yeah, and the visual, so it almost gets like it's almost like a skin sort of degenerate. I can't remember, like flesh eating kind of thing. Anyway, she's got like all these holes basically all over her hands and stuff, and that's all really nicely done. You've got the worms themselves, which sort of wriggle around, and you know the visual effects there are quite nice. Yeah, I liked it. It's about 15 minutes long. I think it's on Alta. Directed by Will Lee, who did the film Feed as well, which is another sort of small scale kind of horror story. I thought the small cast were good. You know, the lead actress Faye Tamasa was good. The guy playing the boyfriend, Skylar Ockerstrom Lang, quite liked him. As you know, his optimism about what this trip was going to be and what the reality. But you know, basically in the typical sort of horror movie fashion, it basically falls apart for everyone. It's not really doesn't really go well for anyone involved. But I thought it's good. I'd be interested to see a sort of a, no pun intended, fleshed out version. But Faye Tamasa, I believe she's credited as Faye Nightingale in this. I'm just looking at the IMDb credits of the cast. Definitely interested to see more from the director. Those two that I've seen have both been interesting. This was better than Feed, I felt. And you know, it'd be really interesting to see what the next short or perhaps feature debut will be like.
Absolutely, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I like the that visual effect as well. What happens to the cult leader when the portal's left open? I thought that was really really cool as well. So that's Ringworms. As we said, it's on the YouTube channel Alta, and we'll put a link in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Unlucky Stars. When Peru's biggest action film star and Jordan's newest rising talent find themselves pursued by a notorious bookie, a couple of private investigators are forced to choose between their job and their conscience. This is a love letter, a big, fat, heartstrung love letter to the classics by Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and Yen Biu. Specifically the likes of Dragons Forever and a few others. And it is just absolutely brilliant. It really is. If you're a fan of Hong Kong cinema from the 80s and 90s, then you're going to recognize the sort of things they're covering. Even if you're not, even if you're a fan of like Isaac Florentine and people like that, you're going to really, really appreciate what these guys have done. Over to you, Rich.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen it before. I've been wanting to see it for a long time. I don't know if it ever got a proper release, but it's been on YouTube for a while. It's released by the I believe has been like properly released by the makers themselves, because if you go on the website, it basically links through to the film, say freely available. It's very much a passion project from sorry, the filmmakers Dennis Rule, Ken Kitsugawa, sorry, I apologize for butchering that name, and Vlad Rimberg as well. All very, very proficient, action filmmakers and stuff in there. And sort of this is kind of a showcase, I guess, is the sort of best way to put it for them and the various people in the stunt performers in the cast who it's all action guys doing their own stunts. That's kind of one of the big selling pieces to the film. I think I really wanted to like it, and I do love the choreography, and that it's really it's great stuff. I think just for me, you can have too much of a good thing, and I think it just sort of, some of it just goes on too long, and I do prefer it sort of more bite size, this kind of thing, and I wasn't
really
an
hour and 40 minutes, so
hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah,
you do get, I mean, not paying any money for it, but you get your money's worth, and more over. There's so much action in here. It's just perhaps a bit too much for me at the time when I was watching it, as probably a bit. I sort of compare it to there's a short film that Jean-Paul Lai and Laurent Plancel did called The Division, which was almost, it felt almost like it was half an hour of pure action, which again, fantastic stuff, but just a bit too much. Like for example, some of the fight scenes in this just go on a really, really long time, and that's kind of not. What's interesting is that's kind of an approach that has been taken with the new John Wick film. The scenes just go on and on and on. But I think in this case, I would have preferred a bit more brevity in some of the scenes, especially in the fact that some of the music and stuff is really repetitive. Yeah. So therefore, you haven't got it just feels like it's, although you're seeing lots of different actions and stuff, it starts to all blend together. And I say this as somebody who really loves this stuff, but I think you've really got to be like, okay, I know I'm just going to be watching action scenes basically for the next hour and a half. It does even at times feel like it's been assembled from shorts, like a web series. And I think that's a way I would have preferred to watch the story. I think if I'd have watched it that way, I would have probably got on better with it. Sure. But I didn't get on with the story and stuff, unfortunately, but fantastic action. I mean, what incredibly talented guys. There's some little cameo appearances by people, if you're people who are aware of the stunt community may recognize, and supporting players like Sam Hargrave, the director of Extraction, has a role in this, and there's somebody who turns up at the end in a quick shot, which was nice to see.
JJ Perry's in there as well somewhere.
That's who I was alluding to. Yes, but say the guys themselves, sort of the main actors, Dennis Rule, I'll just say Dennis, Ken, and Vlad, sort of the main sort of guys. They get solid opportunities to sort of showcase what they can do. Vlad's also the sort of action director, choreographer of the film as well.
Yep.
He's got a very active YouTube channel with loads of shorts on it, which I'll be honest, I haven't even had a chance to sort of delve into those yet. But I would equate it to something like there was another film that was a bit like this in terms of concept, but seemed to have a bit of a bigger budget, and that was called Plan B, which also never really got a proper release. I mean, it's actually really, really difficult to find because I think it was made in Germany, I think, and never really got any exposure outside of Germany. But it's now it's supposed to be getting a remake, like an English language remake.
All right.
I think by Amazon. But anyway, that film is like a much more polished version of what this was doing, and this is kind of, I would also equate this to something like Eric Jacobus's Contour, which is also kind of a really low budget but very passionate action set piece film. They showcase some really fantastic sort of Hong Kong influenced action, which we've also seen in other films like Blindsided, for example. So I wasn't blown away, unfortunately. I really wanted to be. For me, it was too much of a good thing, and just a bit too much repetition in some of it. But absolutely fantastic action sequences, and I'm sure anybody who's into martial arts action and hasn't seen it, it's definitely a must see. You've got to go and check it out, and if you're not familiar with some of these guys, it will sort of lead you down some more sort of rabbit holes of other people's work to check out.
Absolutely. I think I did enjoy it a bit more than you.
I see.
I don't think I noticed the repetition as much, because I did watch it in 2 sittings. I didn't sort of split it up, but even so, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think Vlad Rimberg in particular, doing the sort of Sammo Hung impression, was very good. There's a guy who does a good sort of Yen Hua impression at the beginning. The cigars chomping baddie from Dragons Forever and Eastern Condors. He was really good as well. Yeah, I just thought the cast was very solid. The choreography was very good. It does need tightening up in places, but overall, I thought this was a lot of fun. Ken
was in the Paper Tigers, by the way. I think he was one of the main characters, and also the Eric Jacobus thing. He was in films like Rope-a-Dope 2, and Dennis Rule was in. He's the director of the film as well as one of the actors. He works a lot on like video games and stuff, but he's been in things like he also did the Rope-a-Dope 2, but has done lots of huge amounts of stunt work and stuff. But they're Five Wolves Pros Down. That's a short film that he did. I've seen that one. He's done quite a lot of. Cool. I'd say all over the place, doing all different sorts of, these guys work in multiple aspects of the business. That they're in front of the camera, they're like designing action, they're doing, stunt stuff, they're doing mocap and previs and whatever it is.
Absolutely, they definitely know their stuff. That's what
they do. They absolutely are sort of like the best. And this is back in 2015. They're even better now, probably. So definitely look up, watch this, check out their sort of IMDb's and YouTube channels and stuff, and see what else they've done.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yep. So there you go. We don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you check them out, and we highly recommend you check this. That is the end of this week's show. So thank you for listening. Thanks to Rich for joining me. Unfortunately, Steve wasn't able to make it, but he'll be back next episode. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also, the Short Shots, where Rich puts a link to a new short every evening. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.